Hello. Going to do a live stream. Not sure if anyone's going to pop in. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Either way, we'll be just fine and dandy. Going to try to do an audio check. Bear with me. Come on. Yep. Either way, audio check is fine. A little bit quiet. Is that because I'm not shouting? I've got one viewer. I think that's perhaps myself. And it is an open panel today. If anyone wants to pop up and say whatever you want, talk about anything in particular. Maybe it's crime related, maybe it's not. Maybe you just want to call me a flaming idiot. Either way is all perfectly fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through some of the articles that I have lined up. They're not prepared. I've not read through almost all of them, I think. So this is giving me an opportunity to read through them. Maybe this is of interest to yourself. Maybe it isn't. But we're going to read through it. If you do pop in, I think I might have one viewer. If you do pop in, say hello. And it's an open panel. Just click on the thingy. Remind me to put my headphones on. And you can come up and talk to me if you want. Don't have to. Perhaps, I mean, I would dare say that the chances are you don't really want to, I would imagine. But anyway, I'm going to read through some of these articles. And this is effectively going to be an unprepared, pretty boring live stream. But what else have you got going on at the moment? It's Friday night in America, and I would imagine that there are some people that are looking for something to do, some kind of interaction. But I could be wrong. So, maybe there's better places to hang out rather than this stream. Anyway, gonna read through this first article. Miami rapper Wavy Navy Poo has been shot to death while driving. Kids narrowly escape harm. A Miami rapper known as Wavy Navy Poo was shot to death Friday evening as he was ambushed while in a car driving in West Kendall. Multiple law enforcement sources told the Miami Herald. The rapper, whose real name is Chandler Bobian, 28 years of age, was gunned down while in a car at Southwest 152nd Street and 127th Avenue near Zoo, Miami. What, is there a place in Miami called Zoo? What, is that a nightclub? Is it a nightclub? Is it a suburb? I don't know. While Miami-Dade police had not officially confirmed his identity, his death was already abuzz on social media on Friday night. Bobian was suspected of being involved in a series of shootings in North Miami-Dade over the past year, and police officials are already bracing for retaliation attacks as the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend unfolds. Martin Luther King, wasn't he for peace? Didn't he want a peaceful situation? Didn't he want unity, like our good friend Slow Joe Biden? According to police, the slain driver was behind the wheel of a Toyota Camry, stopped at the intersection when a grey four-door Lexus pulled on his side and opened fire, killing him. Unharmed was a 1-year-old baby boy, a 5-year-old boy, and an adult woman in the back seat. Well, there's quite a bit of relief there that the two children, as well as the adult woman, weren't harmed. They were completely unharmed during this drive-by shooting. The infant escaped harm on his birthday. Social media posts about his death went viral for Bobian, who boasts over 68,000 followers on his Instagram. Bobian of Brownsville was most notable for his song Miami, Murder is a Major Issue, which features him waving around a pistol, a staged murder crime scene, and actual footage of Miami-Dade police officers at real-life shooting scenes. It had been viewed on YouTube over 200,000 times. Bobian had been shot at before in May 2020. He was wounded whilst driving on the 3100 block of Northwest 88th Street, wounded in the thigh and leg. Bobian told officers he fired back in self-defense after somebody in a passing car opened fire at him and several other men gathered outside a house. Okay. All right. So I suppose that part there isn't that interesting. What's going on? Nope, didn't want that to happen. All right. I personally have never heard of this rapper before. I do listen to hip hop a little bit more than I should. I feel a little bit hypocritical listening to hip hop, really just because of the gang banging that's going on. You know, here I am trying to be a good little boy, trying to do the right thing in general as I meander through this road that we call life. I try to do the right thing by and large. You know, I don't strive to be perfect or anything, but I try to do the right thing. And you know, here I am listening to rap music, which in itself ought to be fine, other than it involves, you know, graphic, violent details constantly, and I dare say has an effect on the youth in particular. Would be my take on it. I think it's kind of undeniable. So I do feel hypocritical. I'm going to move on to the next article. By the way, nobody's here. That's fine. Tucson boy, Tucson, Arizona, I believe, 13 years of age, has been accused of stabbing his mom to death. What a little shit. I mean, if he actually is guilty of that, we don't know if that's the case. But I mean, they wrote this article for reasons. What a little shit. Stabbing your mum to death. You're only 13. What could she have done? I've got no idea. I've not read through the article, but let's have a look at it now. A 13-year-old was arrested in the stabbing death of his mother on Tuesday night in Rita Ranch. Isaiah Anu, and by the way, I might have these pronunciations wildly inaccurate. It's not purposeful. I think I'm pretty good in general with pronunciations, but of course, I'm not always going to get it right. Isaiah Anu was arrested on suspicion of first-degree murder and domestic violence and booked into the Pima County Juvenile Detention Center. On January the 11th, just after 9 p.m., 60-year-old Mary Anu showed up at her neighbor's home seeking help after she'd been stabbed in her home. The neighbor called 911 and reported that Anu's 13-year-old son was the suspect and that he had left the area, a Tucson police news release said. Tucson fire medics came to the scene in the 8200 block of South Via del Forjado and rendered aid to the mother before taking her to the St. Joseph's Hospital, where she died several hours later. TPD, Tucson Police Department, SWAT personnel, and K9 units assisted in the search, and Uzziah was found several blocks away on East Esmond Loop. Detectives believe Uzziah was in a verbal confrontation with his mother, and as it escalated, Mary Anu was physically assaulted and ultimately stabbed. No one else was present in the home at the time of the incident. Okay, the Star, the news publication, is naming the accused boy in the stabbing due to the seriousness of the alleged crime. What a terrible tragedy! What a terrible tragedy! I'm fairly new to this true crime thing. Been doing it for 2 months, 3 months, and I've dropped off in the last week. I've dropped off a little bit for this reason, that reason, but I always struggle to find the right words. What am I supposed to say? What are we supposed to say when we read these subjects? They're obviously tragedies. I mean, it seems kind of nonsensical stating them, but how terrible! You're a 13-year-old boy, a son, allegedly, this may not be the actual situation, but allegedly stabbed his mother to death. I mean, how tragic, how horrific. I mean, what would be rushing through your mind if you're the mother and you're in the midst of dying, you're bleeding out or whatever it is, in the full knowledge that your 13-year-old son has just killed you? or stabbed you, and you realize that you're about to die. What fear must you be feeling? Fear for yourself as you die, and fear for your son, your 13-year-old son, who's turned himself into a murderer. Presumably, he wasn't a murderer the day before. I mean, how absolutely horrific. What would compel a 13-year-old to do that? I mean, for all we know, the mother could be torturous. She could have been a child abuser. For all we know, we don't know the full details. Perhaps it's inappropriate of me to suggest that. I'm not really suggesting that. I'm just saying that we don't know, and that is a possibility. I'm trying to think of why a 13-year-old boy would stab his mom. It's likely mental illness, really. Mental illness. I mean, how did he even have access to a knife? Unless it's a kitchen knife, that would make sense. But anyway, it is tragic. We're going to move on to the next subject. I say we, it's just me here. Perhaps yourself if you're listening after the fact. Man has been sentenced for slitting the throat of a 13-year-old boy in the most heinous and cowardly way during a birthday sleepover. So, this is all alleged, of course. I haven't read through the article. We're about to do that now. But if this happens to be true, what a piece of shit. And obviously, I'm understating things there a little bit, aren't I? A 21-year-old Florida man will spend the rest of his life behind bars for fatally stabbing a 13-year-old boy on his birthday over comments he deemed an affront to his Islamic faith. Boo-hoo. During a 2018 sleepover. The judge on Thursday handed down a sentence of life without the possibility of parole to Corey Johnson, who was 17 years of age, when he brutally murdered Giovanni Sierra and nearly killed two others who he had stabbed multiple times. Here's a quote from Corey Johnson, the convicted murderer. I took the life of an innocent 13-year-old boy in the most heinous and cowardly way possible. I know I contributed to the spread of evil in this world. Okay, I mean, it's not an apology, is it? Not that an apology would make any difference to me, in my opinion. Some people seemingly place a high value on apologies. I don't so much necessarily. Anyhow, back to the article. A Palm Beach County jury in November needed only 4 hours to return a guilty verdict against Johnson on one count of first-degree murder in Sierra's death, as well as 2 counts of attempted murder for also stabbing 13-year-old Dane Bancroft and his mother, Elaine Simon. Dane Bancroft, who was hosting the sleepover for his middle school classmate Sierra's birthday, was stabbed a total of 37 times, while his mother was stabbed 12 times. Oh my God. Oh my God. So I'm glad this guy, Corey Johnson, he's been given life without the possibility of parole. Yeah, that seems about right to me. So he's killed one 13-year-old boy, and pardon my French, but he stabbed the shit out of another 13-year-old boy, and also his mother 37 times. I mean, I'll say this: God must have been looking over Dane to recover from 37 stab wounds. His mother recovered from 12. I presume they've recovered fully, hopefully. But how shocking! There you are, trying to be a good boy. You're having a sleepover party, a nice, fun time. It's not even for yourself; it's for your friend's birthday, and you end up getting stabbed. So does your other friend. Your friend gets stabbed to death, and your mother gets stabbed multiple times. I mean, yeah, there is evil in this world. Johnson, this evil scumbag, apologized to the families of his victims and went so far as to denounce ISIS, the extremist group which his attorney claims was responsible for radicalizing Johnson when he was a teen. Oh, okay. Seems like a bit of an excuse there, I don't know. Can't you see, I don't know. If you have to offer an explanation as to something along the lines of this group over here is responsible for changing my mindset, to me there's a bit of weakness there. There's a bit of weakness, like seems like a little bit of evasion, trying to evade responsibility, certainly to a certain extent. I'm not fully responsible for murdering a 13-year-old boy. I'm not fully responsible for stabbing another 13-year-old boy 37 times. I'm not fully responsible for stabbing one of the mothers for 12 times. Part of the responsibility comes from these guys on the other side of the planet who radicalized me. So go light on me. I'm glad the judge saw right through that and didn't go light on him at all. Back to the article, here's a quote from, again, this despicable murderer. I wish I could take it back. I wish I could do something to make this right. But I do want to apologize, not because it will change anything, but because I really, truly am sorry. I am truly in disbelief that I could have done something so terrible. That's not who I am, and I'm not a violent person. Sorry to break it to you, Corey, but that is who you are, and you are a violent person, you know? I'm not going to pretend to be a psychologist or anything like that, but I do believe we all have violence within us. And I think, you can point to Nazi Germany to see that huge swathes of the population can be turned into violent people. I mean, I suppose you don't even have to point to the Nazis. You could point to, most servicemen and women are willingly stepping into violent situations. It is a part of life. It is a part of the psyche. Um, but almost all of us are able to control any violent urges and avoid violent behavior. Certainly to this degree, it is who you are, Corey. So yeah, people do change, but that is a part of your life, and it's not an insignificant part of your life. So let's go back to the article. The judge emphasized Johnson's willingness to ruthlessly kill people over extremist views in concluding that rehabilitation was not likely. The judge declined a request from the piece of shit murderous scumbags defense attorneys that his clients only be sentenced to 40 years in prison. Okay. All right. And this all happened in 2018. Nobody's here. So this might be. I probably will delete this, perhaps, if nobody comes in. Okay, so this tells us that the sleepover murder took place on March the 12th, 2018, at the home of Elaine Simon, the mother who was stabbed 12 times. Palm Beach Gardens police testified during the trial that Johnson, this murderous scumbag, confessed to the triple stabbing, saying he killed Sierra, whom he'd just met that night, over comments he believed offended his Muslim faith. Per the arrest affidavit, Johnson reportedly told investigators that Sierra was idolizing celebrities and treating them as gods, which went against Islam. He said he also believed Bancroft made fun of his faith. Oh, okay. So it was Giovanni Sierra that was killed. So the 13-year-old boy's viewpoints and comments were not to the liking of the murderous scumbag. Johnson was reportedly at the sleepover as a guest of Kyle Bancroft, Dane's 17-year-old brother. Johnson waited until everyone else in the house was asleep, then used his phone to read the Quran to give him courage to carry out his intentions before he began stabbing people. He reportedly began with Sierra, the 13-year-old, stabbing him multiple times and cutting his throat. When Simon came to investigate, so when the mother came to investigate the commotion, he used the knife to stab her a dozen times. Dane Bancroft became the third victim when he intervened to try and save his mother. Good for you, Dane. You're a hero. Carl Bancroft, Dane's brother, was reportedly awoken by Johnson, who looked almost happy as he told Kyle that he'd just killed his little brother. Following the incident, Johnson's family told investigators that Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin fascinated the teen, who had recently become interested in Islam. So there we go. So, I mean, what can you say about that? It is evil. He was 17-year-old at the time. He's 17 years old at the time. I'm glad that the judge has seen fit to sentence him to 40 years, to life in prison with no opportunity for parole. I think that's a good thing. My question is it mental illness? Can we use this mental illness thing all the time? I guess it isn't mental illness, because otherwise this article would tell us that the defense argued that it was mental illness. But radicalization, seemingly, I don't know, man. How radicalized can you be to get to the point that you just go around murdering people? Okay, so let's have a look at this article. And no one's here still. That's fine. I wanted to read through these anyway. So let's have a look at this. Police chiefs finally apologized for tasering an 8-year-old white ex-ballet dancer who was mistaken for a black suspect in his 30s. Okay. All right. I don't really understand what this is going to tell us. All right. This is the victim. An 8-year-old white ex-ballet dancer mistaken for a black suspect in his 30s and tasered in his kitchen has finally received a public apology from police chiefs. Roy Morton was woken on December the 28th by officers armed with submachine guns who smashed through his front door, tasered him, pinned him to the floor, and handcuffed him after allegedly mixing up his address. You bunch of fucking dumbasses. So the police, armed with submachine guns, were looking for a black suspect in his 30s. They went to the wrong house and they decided to taser and floor an 80-year-old white man. The white man being relevant because if they had just read the description of who they were trying to apprehend, they would have fucking realized that this white guy is not a black 30-year-old. Dumbasses. Chief Superintendent Philip Ryan from Scotland Yard's Specialist Firearms Command said, "I am deeply sorry that this terrible error occurred, and I apologize wholeheartedly to Mr. Morton." Good, Philip. But, he's going to want his payout. Everyone wants their payout nowadays, so let's hope he gets a payout. He said a team is investigating what happened. Well, we know what happened. You went to the wrong house, and despite having a description that you were trying to apprehend a black male in his 30s, you decided to taser and floor a white man in his 80s. That's what happened. Okay, and Mr. Morton said the apology was superficial and that he is still very shaken. Yeah, look, I mean, even if he is Mr. Morton, even if he was able to shrug this off and think to himself, "Oh, no big deal, these things happen," which I would suggest is pretty unlikely. But even if he was able to do that, he's got every right to try to push for some kind of payout. You know, that's the world we live in. I would, I would, even if it's a little bit immoral, I would push for it. I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. And I dare say you would too. Maybe you wouldn't. If you wouldn't, then maybe you're an exceptionally moral person, or perhaps you just don't financially feel the need for a payout. Anyhow, he's 80 years old. It's going to be a reminder of how weak he is, how vulnerable he is, how fragile he is, how unable he is to protect himself against the police, against any assailants. So, yeah, I mean, it would be, I would dare say that it was a traumatic event. And I think he's got every right to say the apology's superficial. I wouldn't disagree. He said, Mr. Morton, the victim said, "I don't go outside. I just stay indoors with the curtains shut. I feel like an old man for the first time in my life." Well, I felt like an old man for a little while myself. Describing the moment armed officers burst into his kitchen at 7 a.m., Mr. Morton told the Daily Mail, "I was wearing my pajamas, just standing there on the tiled floor, wondering desperately what the hell was going on. At least four police in full gear carrying machine guns were shining dazzling bright torches in my face, all shouting and screaming something unintelligible at me. They gave me no instructions, nothing." Yeah, I mean, it can be scary being confronted by the police. And I think we can imagine a SWAT team being particularly aggressive. And I'm sure they're aggressive for good reason when they get things right. They do what they do for reasons. They're not there to say, "Excuse me, sir, would you like a cup of tea? Gonna have to arrest you now. But we'll make you a quick sandwich if you like." They're not there to do that. They're there to get compliance immediately in order to alleviate any risks, to minimize any risks, because a lot of criminals out there will shoot at the police and do whatever else. Anyway, back to the article. Suddenly, one of them fired this taser at me, and the electricity started zapping. It hit me in the stomach and the top of my leg, and I fell to the floor of the kitchen, helpless. Then they jumped on me, kneeling on my back to pin me onto the tiled floor, twisting my arms behind my back and handcuffing me and telling me I was under arrest for a fray. Describing his state of shock and confusion, he said officers then watched him get dressed and go to the toilet before taking him away. Mr. Morton, who was fitted with a pacemaker, holy shit, 25 years ago, said he was taken to the Royal Free Hospital in North London after the arrest to have the after the arrest to have his pacemaker examined. He was later transferred. La la la. Okay. So yeah, what a complete and utter bunch of fuckwits. Pardon my French. The police have completely and utterly fucked up, you know, and because the police and presumably SWAT teams are particularly aggressive, slam you down on the ground, are rough with your arms and your legs, probably purposefully. Again, they want whoever they're trying to arrest to submit and perhaps to do more than submit, to be scared of what's happening so that they comply fully with the police. Um, because the police and these SWAT teams do whatever the word is, apply such tactics, utilize such tactics, they do make themselves vulnerable to be responsible for payouts in the event that they fuck up. So, Mr. Morton, I hope that you do pursue this legally. And I'm not one for frivolous uh, legalities, but in this case, this guy deserves a payout, you know. And if the police aren't going to come forward and say, Sorry about that. It must have been a dreadful situation for yourself. It is our responsibility. We fucked up. Here's a payout. Here's £20,000. Here's £40,000. Whatever the number happens to be, but it's going to have to be. It's going to have to be a decent amount of compensation. I mean, if you look at America, I'm going to get this wrong, but George Floyd's family received what, $25 million payout or whatever it was. I can't remember what the number was, but it was in its multi-millions to the family. I mean, this is a direct victim. Okay, is that a poor comparison because George Floyd died, this guy didn't die? Maybe it is, whatever. Gonna move on anyway. Farmer Bro, my good buddy Martin Shkreli, is ordered to pay $65 million to 7 states in America and is banned for life from working for any pharmaceutical company. I used to follow Martin Shkreli. I like Martin Shkreli. He's a good guy. Has he been a naughty boy? Probably. But who hasn't been, I think he's a good guy. Anyhow, Farmer Bro Martin Shkreli has been ordered to pay nearly $65 million to 7 states that sued him for antitrust violations in a decision that has also banned him from working from any pharmaceutical industry. United States District Judge Dennis Cote in Manhattan ruled after a trial where the United States Federal Trade Commission and 7 states had accused Shkreli, the founder of Viera Pharmaceuticals, of using illegal tactics to keep Daraprim rivals out of the market. All right, what are those tactics? Do tell me. I'd like to know what those tactics are, because I don't know what they could be. But I mean, isn't the complaint that he increased the price of Daraprim? If he increases the price, doesn't that mean that it's opening the doors for other entrants to come into the market? Now, the 7 plaintiff states are entitled to a payout, but it's unclear where the money will come from and what the states will do with it if Shkreli ever pays up. The states alleged in their case that Viera hiked the price of Daraprim and illegally created a web of anti-competitive restrictions to prevent other companies from creating cheaper generic versions. Well, I mean, look, I could be wrong, right? I could be wrong, but if you're a pharmaceutical company and you own the rights to a given drug or medication or therapeutical or whatever, then isn't it like, I mean, again, this is me as a layman speaking, I might be incredibly wrong, but wouldn't you have a patent on that? Wouldn't you have copyright on that? You would have legal rights to that. So if that's the case, then wouldn't you be entitled to prevent attempts to copy your patented, owned intellectual property? I don't know. I'm not automatically trusting the reporting on this subject. Among other things, they allege Viera blocked access to a key ingredient for the medication and to data the companies would want to evaluate the drug's market potential. What? How could Viera block access to a key ingredient? How could they do that? What, they buy all of the stock of this particular ingredient? I don't know. It seems a bit unrealistic to me. Can't manufacturers go out there and make things? By the way, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm talking about. Shkreli drew notoriety in 2015 after hiking Daraprim's price overnight to $750 per tablet from $17.50. By the way, such huge price increases are somewhat normal within the pharmaceutical industry and have continued long after Shkreli's media hoo-ha and arrest, etc., etc. So it's not only that it's not only his pharmaceutical company that had extremely high hikes in pricing, and the payments he made the drug available for free, or perhaps was it for $1 to those people that were able to show that they couldn't afford the treatment. And also, wasn't it a 2-week treatment? I may have that wrong, but I think by memory it was a limited time. So it wasn't $750 per tablet, and by the way, you have to take that tablet 3 times a day for the rest of your life. No, it was something like it was a 2-week course that you had to go through, and then hopefully one and done. I could have that completely wrong. The drug treats toxoplasmosis, which, by the way, I've started to read more about recently. It's come up in the news very recently. I won't mention why. A parasitic infection that threatens people with weakened immune systems. Right. That's perhaps why. Weakened immune systems. Why is that being talked about right now? In a 130-page decision, Coate faulted Shkreli for creating 2 companies, Viera and Retrofin, designed to monopolize drugs so he could profit on the backs of patients, doctors, and distributors. But hang on, isn't that what all of the pharmaceutical industries do? They monopolize, they patent their own particular intellectual property, whatever it is. I've got this wrong, no doubt, but the individual pharmaceutical companies develop drugs or purchase existing drugs, and then they have the rights. And if you want to so only they can produce that drug unless there are reasons to change that. All right. Shkreli was no side player in or remote unrelated beneficiary of Vara's blah, 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 blah. He was the mastermind of its illegal conduct and the person principally responsible for it throughout the years. You said the Darprim scheme was particularly heartless and coercive. Ah, man, this is just bullying of Martin Shkreli. Envy, greed, lust, and hate. This is what the pharmaceutical industry do. It's just like normal business practice for them. Shkreli and his partner to illegally jack up the price of a life-saving drug as Americans' lives hung in the balance. Look, he said he will give it out for free or for $1 to anyone that could display that they weren't able to purchase it. And by the way, you have like insurance systems in America. Required him to pay nearly $65 million. Is he going to have 65 million? Maybe. Did he? I don't know if he was fiddling around with crypto. Probably was. Probably was. Probably is. There's a very good chance he's got that money. This is on top of the 40 million we've already secured. It's like they're just trying to fucking punish this guy for, as much as possible. And why are we not looking at Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, all of them including governments that are doing the same thing now with different medicines? Yep. Too hard basket, I guess, or too powerful basket. They're powerful. Easier just to go after one greedy twit. Well, he's not a twit in the sense of intelligence. I mean, he's an incredibly intelligent person. Just to go after one. Is he greedy? Yeah, he's probably greedy. But I mean, greed is good, is it not? Isn't that what we're taught? And he was, from what he said, and this may be stuff and nonsense, but he said that The reason for part of the reason for jacking up the price was to get money to invest in research to develop a better drug for to apply to be applied in regards to toxoplasmosis. So a better drug for the same ailment, because apparently it's not a very good drug. It's a very unpleasant drug to take. Whatever. That's awesome news, but I still want to kick him in his face. Well, Major Frank Burns, you're just being irrational, aren't you? I guarantee you've not looked into this subject deeply. I guarantee it, Major Frank Burns. Loathsome individual is receiving some of the treatment he has earned by his conduct. He's not loathsome. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. Now we need Zuckerberg banned from live forever, life getting near a computer, and the Google guys next. They always go after the little guy and leave Big Pharma alone. What a shame. Yes, that is true, because he is not the only one with the same mindset and tactics in this industry. That's right. So you bust a small-time CEO that really has no effect on the general population, yet never go after Big Pharma because they line the pockets of politicians. Yes, that's well stated. Yeah. So anyway, maybe that's been completely boring, but no one's here anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Black man with no criminal record sues 2 police departments in Las Vegas after mistaking him for a white man over 20 years his senior with a warrant mistake of that magnitude. Oh, this is similar to the other one. Okay, you know what? I'm going to wrap things up here. Nobody's here. No one has come in. That's fine. Goodbye.